answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I woke up this morning, got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
Timothy Cardinal Dolan in New York, reacting to the death of Pope Francis just moments ago.
But we also offer gratitude to God for the gift. The gift that he was. We don't call it Holy Father for nothing. He's the father of our family. And there's a death in the family. And we're saddened.
So it was interesting, too, because he was on our couch on Friday talking about the Pope. This is leaders from around the world share their sadness over the loss. Meanwhile, as we look at almost every world leader that I could think of has weighed in this morning. And think about J.D. Vance. He was there yesterday, and there you're seeing this video on Sunday, Easter Sunday. And people talked about, well, it was a 5-minute meeting. Then you realize how he could have been suffering at that moment just for because of the problems he's had breathing. And, of course, he had passed away early this morning.
That's the report as stated by Fox News earlier today. 1.2 billion Catholics now without an official leader. A conclave will be called to decide a new pope. We'll go through some details of that for you coming up here shortly. I do hope you had a most blessed Easter. And, of course, there's still talk about maybe making the Monday after Easter or maybe Friday, Good Friday, the day of Christ's crucifixion, a national holiday. We have a lot of other national holidays that have no bearing on the real world anymore, and yet we continue to do those. Why not do what is present for Americans, Christians, and Jews, and other religions within the extent that we can? And there is the answer. When I tell you later this hour what's happening in Great Britain, it's not going to set well with you. I know it probably did not set very well with the Prince and Catherine, the Princess of Wales. That's coming up later. First of all, welcome aboard Larry Connors USA, news, analysis, opinion, and education. You will leave every program with more knowledge than you had when we began. I can promise you that. And reminding you when we're on the air, Monday through Friday from 6 to 8 p.m., we are streaming video. You can watch the program. And how do you do that? You go to NewsTalkSTL Rumble, Facebook, or Twitter. Larry Connors USA, Rumble, or Facebook. And everything goes up later as a podcast. You can pull it up at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, Larry Connors USA Facebook. I encourage you to do that because I know sometimes you cannot stay with us through the entire 2 hours. I understand that. That's why we make the programs available as a podcast as well. And also for you to listen or watch and push the button to share. Send it on to others. You are our multiplying factor, and I thank you for your support. The death of Pope Francis at age 88 had been weighing in balance for some time. As you know, he had been battling illnesses. And when he was a young man, he had part of a lung removed. Whether or not that contributed to the current situation that he finally ended up with, there was talk that it might be double pneumonia. Then a report came out that it might be a brain hemorrhage. It's not clear. But he did meet yesterday with Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife, and also gave them 3 Easter eggs to take to their children. Now what will happen? Well, a 15-day mourning period will be observed before there is a conclave called. There is no age limit on who can become pope. Francis was 76 when he took on. Benedict before him was 78. and was pope for only 8 years before his surprise retirement in 85. So here's the way it will happen. 120 cardinals of voting age will gather in the Sistine Chapel, home of the papal conclave since 1858. Later in the day, there will be a shout that everyone leaves except for the Cardinals, sworn to an oath of secrecy. They'll be locked into the conclave until they can choose a successor. There will be rounds of voting, and when a pope is elected, a single candidate receives two-thirds majority, then the word will come out that they have a new pope, and the signal will come by smoke. Ballot papers are burned in a small fire inside the Sistine Chapel to the field and contenders until it's whittled down. Black smoke released by the fire and vented through the roof tells the crowds waiting a new pontiff is yet to be chosen. Then will come the white smoke, indicating a new pope. Then the pope will be presented to the crowds. Now, of these coming from around the world to take part in this, only cardinals under the age of 80 are actually allowed to cast a vote. They must be male, obviously, in the Catholic religion, obviously baptized Catholics, and they will be nominated from around the world as to who comes to the conclave. But for now, the 15-day period of mourning is underway. Later in this hour, in other news, the DEI is still alive, vibrant, the heart beating, and yet we still need to rip it out. We'll do that. And also in the next hour, IRS workers getting by without having to pay taxes while you slave to pay yours. Nobody bothers them. Why? First of all, to the illegals we have in this country. Chuck Schumer, Senator Chuck Schumer, believes we're at a point now in this country that all of the illegals that are here should basically have, in his opinion, amnesty.
Now more than ever, we're short of workers. We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are here.
Now, there is the issue. Chuck Schumer admitting the 11 million undocumented, or however, are here. Some of what he says is accurate. We do need more workers if we have more jobs available, and apparently there are a lot of jobs out there, and we're not getting Americans to do them. And then you reference the population decrease. And that's been happening anyway prior to Biden opening the borders. And many of those coming in are more than likely Catholic. So there probably will be an increase in their population. But for him to say that's the only way our nation survives, I would disagree. I'm willing to accept some points, but his general attitude is give amnesty to everyone inside our borders. No. They broke the law to come in. Joe Biden opened the border illegally, basically. I know he did by executive order, but we knew exactly what he was doing. And now we have it closed up. And then, of course, you have this Salvadoran prison where a man from Maryland was sent. And Senator Van Hollen of Maryland went down there to talk to him directly. And there were photos of him sitting there at looked like a coffee table inside a coffee shop, just sitting there having a conversation. The man's not dressed in the prison whites. They gave him a shirt. I'm sure they showered him before they sat him down with a senator, because the conditions in that prison are probably appalling when it comes to sanitary conditions. And he sits there and they have a discussion. Dana Bash of CNN is telling the story and speaking with Senator Van Hollen. She asked a question. Listen to the question and the answer.
Now, President Trump says that some of Abrego Garcia's tattoos signify that he's a member of MS-13. In 2019, police alleged a confidential informant claimed that Abrego Garcia was an active MS-13 member. His wife and his attorney deny that, of course. Can you say with absolute certainty that he is not, nor has he ever been a member of the MS-13 gang? And did you ask him point blank?
Well, Dana, what Donald Trump is trying to do here is change the subject.
Answer.
The subject at hand is that he and his administration are defying a court order to give Abrego Garcia his due process rights.
But since you were the one person to have met with him, and since this is a thing, you say on social media, it's what we hear from Donald Trump and Republicans every day, all day long, you didn't ask him?
I didn't ask him that because I know what his answer is. What he told me was he was sad and traumatized that he was being in prison because he has committed no crimes. And that goes to the heart of this issue.
He committed a crime.
Being denied his due process rights. And Donald Trump is trying to change the subject.
Yeah, and so are you. And he has committed a crime. He entered the country illegally long before. And there are various reports from ICE and others saying that, yes, he is a member of the gang. But I will give credit to Dana asking again, but you didn't ask him? Well, I knew what his answer was going to be. All right. Oh, and one of the charges that had been against him came from his wife, if you recall, claiming she needed a restraining order because he was beating her repeatedly, and she was worried about her safety and the safety of the children. But now she's suddenly crickets.
Have to ask it. You did take out a temporary order of protection against your husband in 2021. Were you in fear of your husband?
My husband is alive. That's all I can say.
Okay, and I'm not going to push on that apparently. But how much hope?
I don't know why you wouldn't press her, because so many victims of abuse, spouse abuse, do not show up to file charges and carry it out. Now, one other part of this story is not just this guy's been sent down to this prison, and supposedly he might be moved to still another prison. But Scott Jennings, the token conservative on CNN, said the video of what I saw was appalling.
Yeah, listening to Van Hollen explain all this, like if you're explaining how you came to be sipping margaritas with an MS-13 gangbanger who's lived illegally in the United States for 14 years before he was finally deported, you're losing, okay? You're losing. You're losing optically, you're losing politically, and I assume the people of Maryland are wondering, why doesn't this guy ever work as hard for us as he does for this guy who's down in El Salvador, which, by the way, is where he's from in the first place? Look, macro view for me, the American people elected Donald Trump to deport illegal aliens. They especially elected him to deport people who are affiliated with very violent transnational gangs that we now characterize as terrorist organizations. I think he's doing his job, and I think the American people are behind him, and I think the Democrats like Van Hollen look ridiculous standing up for him more than they stand up for the people of the United States of America who are actually citizens of this country.
And Senator Van Hollen should have said, look, I believe so much in this guy, I will sign papers to take him into my custody and he will live with my family instead of staying here in your prison. He didn't make that offer, and you know why. And then you got all those out there saying these illegals need to be compensated in some way. From the White House, Steve Miller.
Where are the damages for Americans? Where do I even begin? Where do I even start? We used to have a functioning public school system in this country. Then we had open borders. Now our schools are in chaos and disarray. We need hundreds of translators. Nobody's learning how to read or write. An entire generation of Americans, multiple generations, in fact, have been robbed of educational opportunities. Entire cities. Look at Los Angeles. Once a paradise of safety, security, and prosperity. Entire neighborhoods occupied and controlled by foreign gangs. Where do all the residents who've been displaced, who've been forced out of Los Angeles, where do they go to get their reparations? And then what about the victims of fentanyl poisoning brought in by Democrats' open border? Hundreds of thousands of moms and dads whose kids are dead and buried in the ground. Where do they go to get their reparations from the government? And then all the women who have been raped, who've been beaten, who've been murdered, all the dads who've been shot dead and aren't home, all the police officers who've been slain by illegal aliens in ambush attacks in the line of duty. Where do any of these people go? Where do any of their families go to get reparations?
Good question, but you're not going to get an answer from the Democrats. In the tariff war, China is trying to coerce other nations side with us, not the U.S.
China says that if the U.S. makes any deals at the expense of China, then it's going to, quote, take countermeasures in a reciprocal manner. And some experts are warning that Beijing could try to strike deals with European countries, for example, that are too good for those countries to refuse at the expense of the United States. But President Trump doesn't seem deterred from his plan, posting on Truth Social about the countries trying to reach agreements with his administration, saying, "It's good to see that the world knows we are serious, because we are. They must right the wrongs of decades of abuse, but it won't be easy for them. But for those who want the easiest path, come to America and build in America."
That would make common sense. Louisiana Senator John Kennedy says, "I'm not that big on tariffs, but they can serve a purpose."
Except with respect to countries that are trying to hurt you. Except with respect to countries that are trying to hurt you. The only good tariff is a dead tariff. Tariffs are government intervention. With a tariff, a government puts its thumb on the scale. That interferes with people's freedom to freely exchange goods and services. Now, we all know that many countries throughout the world use tariffs and trade barriers to hurt the American economy and the American people. President Trump said he had enough. He said, if you raise your tariffs, I'm going to raise mine. And then an astounding thing happened. Instead of these countries bowing up and fighting us, they said, well, let's make a deal. Let's lower our tariffs.
That's what they wanted to do.
And that's what we're in the process of doing right now.
And Kentucky Senator Rand Paul also is an opponent of tariffs, except he sees value.
I'm kind of old-fashioned, Larry. I don't like taxes, and I don't want more of them. I also think that if you tax something, you get less of it. And I don't want less trade. I want more trade. There's a fundamental argument we have to have in this country. Is trade good or bad? The president and his counselors seem to think that in trade, someone gets ripped off. The truth of the matter is this, that all trade is mutually beneficial, and really the U.S. doesn't trade with China. You trade with Walmart. So when I go to Walmart, if I pay $10 for a shirt, I want that shirt, and they want my $10.
And that's a trade. We're going to hear more from Senator Rand Paul on his views on trade coming up in the next hour. But coming up next, DEI still alive, the heart beating. Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
In all these years that Wellington Environmental has been my sponsor, I've never mentioned their duct cleaning services. Allergy season is here, and Wellington crews clean air ducts daily in homes and commercial buildings, also cleaning air handling units and diffusers in commercial facilities. Why? Well, because people will see black dirt and mold on the vents, or they are actually suffering from allergies. Don't be fooled by low-cost duct cleaning providers saying they charge only per vent, because once they get on site, the price will skyrocket. Wellington does not do this, never has. Wellington will give you an estimate, and you say Larry Connors, and immediately you get a 20% discount. Call Cindy, 314-644-4930, 314-644-4930. Make your home and business better, safer with Wellington. Be well with Wellington. Ackerman Toyota is #1 in sales for 2024. That is 2 years in a row. It's really no surprise. Ackerman has the largest customer lounge where you can relax, take your time choosing new or premium pre-owned. Ackerman at Hampton and 44. AckermanToyota.com. Thank you for making Ackerman Toyota #1 2 years in a row. AckermanToyota.com. Ackerman Toyota for life. John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Beal has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Beal. Got a great fun idea for you. The Oak Street Inn and Lounge Speakeasy, now open, but you need a passcode to get in. Easy to get. Just visit the Oak Street Inn and Lounge Facebook. I got my code. Get yours. We'll gather at the Speakeasy. Oak Street Inn and Lounge in Cottleville. Plus, enjoy some fine dining. Visit the Oak Street Inn and Lounge Facebook for your Speakeasy passcode. Oak Street Inn and Lounge Facebook. Get your code now.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back, my guest. We've had discussions with before, and glad to have him back on board. Dr. Stanley K. Ridgely, author of DEI Exposed, How the Biggest Con of the Century Almost Toppled Higher Education. And I would add, and is still in the process of trying to do so. Dr. Ridgely, glad to have you back on board.
Hey, Larry, it's great to be back, and I'm looking forward to our conversation on this.
Well, I note, first of all, that while we were hoping we were cleaning DEI out, and we made it very clear from the White House, if you continue to have these kinds of programs and CRT and so on, we'll start pulling federal dollars. But how's that actually being carried out, and to what extent?
Well, it's actually a welcome change from the previous administrations that refused to act in any way to enforce U.S. civil rights law. What we have is a situation where colleges and universities are rebranding their DEI programs as something else, inclusion and belonging, inclusivity, that kind of thing.
What is it again?
The inclusion and belonging, the Department of Inclusion and Belonging, and things like that. Basically, rebranding it, keeping the same personnel in place. And I think that you know as well as I do that policy is really personnel. And until you get rid of these personnel and the people who hired them, we're still going to have a problem because these people are true believers.
It's still lipstick on a pig, isn't it?
That sure is. And it's not even very good lipstick, I'll tell you that.
I'm looking at a new investigation. This is from a nonprofit group, Defending Education, found 383 currently active DEI offices. Now, I don't know if they're still called that, active DEI offices and programs, and 243 universities maintaining institutional-wide DEI offices or programming. You dispute any of those?
No, I don't. Defending Education is a fantastic organization, and they've come out with a great report. Someone is, tracking whether these institutions are doing what they're supposed to be doing, whether they're adhering to the law as expressed by the Department of Education, basically protecting students' civil rights and their equal protection guarantees under the Constitution. Defending Education is a fantastic organization, and they are dedicated to ensuring that these institutions do indeed follow the law. Because if they don't do it, and we don't have anyone watching these organizations, they're certainly going to slide under the radar where they've dwelled for too long. I think it's refreshing. Transparency is great, and I'm hoping we're going to see a lot more of it. And I'm hoping the Trump administration, in fact, so I'm very confident the Trump administration will continue to put pressure on these colleges, universities to obey the law.
Would it be fair that even though they might be relabeling it, calling it something, they could call it Mama's Basic Pie or something for all I care, if that's what they're still doing? Would Title IX, how they're handling Title IX, would that be a litmus test?
I think Title VI is now the new battleground. Title IX is certainly relevant for the gender wars, the gender ideology wars we're seeing right now. But Title VI is really the new battleground. This is racial discrimination and anti-Semitism. These are the new kind of issues of contention that the Trump administration, the Department of Education, is really hanging its head on. And I think it's about time. A litmus test, I think, would be Title VI.
All right, you see both of them being used, but I hear what you're saying about 6, because if you're allowing anti-Semitic, not just rallies, protests, but staff members, the university getting involved, And it's not, they want to push it as free speech. But then when they're stalking and threatening, their own administrators, as we saw in Congress not too long ago, cannot decide, does that even break our student code of conduct?
Well, the students use the term free speech, and I think the faculty use the term academic freedom, which are really broad brush excuses for doing whatever the hell you want to. And in this case, holding anti-Semitic rallies, pro-Hamas rallies, intimidating, bullying, assaulting Jewish students, and faculty supporting them. And so this is the problem when you have this relabeling. I think that the new relabeling of inclusion and belonging is very similar to the Mooney cult, which uses the terms peace and unity. So no one can really dispute. Well, of course I'm for peace and unity. Of course I'm for inclusion and belonging.
Right.
But what's behind it? And what we find is the toxic ideology of villains and victims based on race. And that's the whole problem with this.
I just had a flashback listening to you describe that. When you talked about the Moonies, I flash back to the 60s Frisco and Flower people. I mean, how far apart was that movement compared to where we are now?
Well, I'm not familiar with that specific Frisco people.
Wait a minute. I know you're older than I am. Go ahead.
Well, it's what we have. Those kinds of people fell for cults very easily.
Right.
It's easy to fall for a cult when you're searching for something, and when someone comes to you with the complete truth about something. And these DEI people are some of the worst con artists. I would say, well, actually the best con artists in terms of spinning a yarn,
right,
getting people to believe it, and then getting people to give up their money. And the money we're talking about is to the tune of $10 billion a year. Industry cultivating race hatred in this country. It's awful.
And the money,
I think it's, go ahead.
I was going to say, and the money being given to those in position of the DEI leadership programs or management, whatever, it's phenomenal amount of money. Even if it's supposedly spent by the university, they're getting federal dollars that help support that.
Well, they're getting federal dollars, and parents are paying exorbitant tuitions for this sort of thing. How much money are we talking about? UVA, University of Virginia, we're talking about $20 million a year, with $1.5 million of that going to 3 people. One, the top 2 honchos and their assistant. Then you've got the University of Michigan for 9 years has spent $250 million. That's the University of Michigan, with the top honcho getting $417,000 for doing what? They can't even describe what it is they do, because they are very modestly educated people with no discernible skill sets.
Well, the other thing that comes, and you mentioned a moment ago with cons, everybody loves a con man because that's what they do. They con you into liking them and following them.
Yeah. Yes, and the con in this case is called, psychology has a word for it, a phrase for it. It's called virtuous victimhood, where you can get someone to, you can convince people that you're a victim somehow, and that they are responsible for your victimhood. And so they're a villain, and they're going to pay you reparations. And that's what the DEI con is all about.
Speaking about reparations, of course, we know the black reparations argument as well, but within the context of what you just stressed, Steve Miller, I had him on a few moments ago, he made a statement the other day, Steve Miller of the White House, making a statement that we're the reparations for Americans who have been victimized by 11 million illegals coming in, flooding our nation with fentanyl, bringing crime and chaos and human trafficking. Where's the reparations for Americans?
So, reparations, the idea of reparations to begin with is kind of a faux issue, where you're trying to get people who have committed no crime against anyone to pay people who've been the victims of no crime of today. It's the idea of someone's ancestor on down the line being guilty of something, and that I'm going to somehow assume that burden is absurd. And of course, if you're going to be the payee for this sort of reparations, you're for it. And if someone's going to pay me a couple $100,000 for something that one of my ancestors did, or one of your ancestors did, I'll be happy to take that money. It'd be wrong, but we need to put a stop to this nonsense.
You're listening to Dr. Stanley K. Ridgely, author of this book, DEI Exposed: How the Biggest Con of the Century Almost Toppled Higher Education. You say almost toppled higher education.
Yes, I did, because we have managed to come back from the abyss. We were approaching the abyss. We were getting close, but we managed to take a step back. The Department of Education is in good hands. We've got the Department of Justice, which is bringing the hammer down on these folks in higher education who have been, in violation of the law, in violation of discrimination law against in admissions. Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard and UNC 2 years ago established that beyond a shadow of a doubt.
That was
And
the
I think
Asian
that
case. That was the Asian case. Is that
Yes, it
correct?
was. Yes, it was. And that has taken care of what people ordinarily think of as DEI. It's just kind of uber affirmative action. And the rest of the DEI con game is basically racialist ideology that is calling some students villains and others victims. And we're going to put a stop to that soon enough, I think.
Problem is, everyone that comes out of one of these universities, they're immersed in it. Hopefully they can stay above the water, but too many of them get sucked into the drain.
Well, it's a very primitive ideology, and it's very seductive because it portrays itself as the received truth, and no one ever has to defend it. I have asked specifically in groups, public events, who are the people, policies, procedures, and programs that you consider racist on the college campus? Can you name names? Can you name programs? And I'm always greeted with silence and accusations that I am somehow part of the problem because they asked the question.
Well, I was
Those
just
are
getting
fraud.
ready to say the same thing. You're just creating a problem is what you're doing with that question.
You're demanding answers.
Yeah.
If you say there's a problem, I want to know what the problem is, and you won't even tell me.
Well, Dr. Ridgely, I want to thank you for your time. We'll have to do it again. That's an extensive project. But in the last 15 seconds, are we making true progress?
I sure as heck think we are, if only because we're having this conversation. We weren't having the conversation a year ago, and so that's great progress in my mind. Great to be with you, Larry.
All right, Dr. Stanley K. Ridgely, we'll do it again. The book is, again, DEI Exposed. Start with that, DEI Exposed. Coming up, Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, facing her charges, and I think she's ready to cry.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I've got a phone number for you and a website where you can take a free, quick survey to learn how to use artificial intelligence, AI, to put your company on a fast track to the future. Here's the number. It's a 636 area code, 636-689-0545. 689-0545. This is PRI Global. And recently, the St. Louis Business Journal named PRI Global as a leading IT consulting company. 25 years working with hundreds of companies, several Fortune 500, locally and around the world. PRI Global has its own AI lab to develop what's best for your company. Take the free survey and be on your way to the future. 636-689-0545. 689-0545. Or go direct, priglobal.ai. priglobal.ai. You want the best place to watch baseball or any sport and be able to enjoy premium cigars and whiskeys? Lit Cigar Lounge. Lit has so many events each month. You need to constantly check the Lit Cigar Lounge Facebook. You don't want to miss anything. Plus, you can order food from Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, delivered within minutes right to your table. By the way, we're in the season for great patio dining. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta has your table waiting. I have several questions for you, but there's only one answer. Who has the most 5-star reviews for windows in St. Louis? Renewal by Andersen. Who is the Post-Dispatch Window Retailer of the Year? Renewal by Andersen. Who is the J.D. Power Award winner 5 years in a row? The same. Renewal by Andersen. Dial pound 250 and say Windows. Pound 250, say Windows. Renewal by Andersen. A better way to a better window. Hey, if you're 50 or older, you do not want to take any risk with your money. In fact, you want Leslie Consulting. My friend Bob Leslie can show you a gain and retain plan. It means that you never lose. Plus, you get up to a 20% bonus on day one. Leslie Consulting, a leader in brokerage and risk management. 314-721-0066. LeslieConsulting.com.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
New York State Attorney General Letitia James now faces a criminal referral from the Federal Housing Finance Agency, accusing her of fraud to get lower mortgage rates. James, whose public salary is $222,000 a year, has obtained home loans for several properties with claims that are apparently false. In 2023, papers show she claimed a house in Norfolk, Virginia, as her primary residence. That qualifies for a lower mortgage rate. But you know, at the time she's been serving in public office in Albany, New York, that's 500 miles away. She bought another building with her father as co-signer, calling herself his wife. And the referrals also show that she bought this brownstone in Brooklyn, New York, but misrepresented the number of units in it. That lowered the mortgage rate there, too.
Well, that is the New York Attorney General Letitia James he's referring to in that Fox report. And yes, word came down last week that she was under investigation for possible mortgage fraud. The very things that were listed by that Fox report are the things that could get you in big trouble, maybe even jail, much less fines, if you were falsifying information in an application to get a mortgage. And particularly the last one, claiming that your father, who is on the premises there with you, I guess, is really your husband, and that would make you get a better tax rate or a mortgage rate. And the question is it her father, or is he the husband, or is he both, maybe? Could be. But Letitia James continues to look at this and say, basically, they're just attacking me because I went after Donald Trump. There is revenge. There is a revenge factor you could apply to that if you want. But I also call it just justice, getting justice. If you wanted to prosecute Trump, you did that, and you knew or should have known that if the tables ever get turned, you're going to be on the other end. But they didn't think that was going to happen. That's their whole ball game. They were seeing no way we're ever going to be at the other end. And then they realized Biden was slipping, and then Kamala was put in, and she was not any better, and they were absolutely at a loss. If the Democrats had decided not to take Hansy for vice president under Kamala and actually took Josh Shapiro, they might have actually had a better chance. I'm glad they took Walz of Minnesota. And all of his hand jive stuff he was doing and just acting like a buffoon in many cases. Did not shore up her credibility. I'm not sure Shapiro could have, but at least it would have been a better selection for Democrats to reconsider. I don't like Trump. I don't like the way things are going, but maybe rather than stay home, I will go vote, and I'll vote Democrat. Later in the next hour, David Hogg, as you well know, from the Parkland shooting, is now the DNC, Democrat National Committee, vice chair. There's new leadership for you, and they're not going to be doing any better, which pains me to say. I'm truly sorry that they're not going to be doing any better. Cry me a river. Ohio Congressman Jordan talking about Letitia James and justice.
This may be the biggest irony I've ever seen in American politics, that it looks like she's engaged in the same thing she charged President Trump with. I mean, turns out you can't have your principal residence in Virginia and be the Attorney General of New York. Turns out you can't on a mortgage form say that your dad is actually your husband, and you also can't say that you got a 4-unit property that's actually 5 units. Those are the 3 things that it looks like she did over a long period of time. And yet she had the gall to go after President Trump. You got to be kidding me. So, yeah, I think this is real. We'll see. Her comments so far, she's been kind of quiet. Of course, she does a typical thing the left always does. The left will they'll always accuse us of what they're doing. And the other thing they always do, the left will tell a lie. Trump did something wrong. Big media will report it. Big tech will amplify it. And then if you tell the truth, they call you names. And that's exactly what she did. I think she called President Trump and his administration bullies for simply pointing out that it looks like she lied on these forms, and she did it to get better terms and a better rate on the loans. So she was doing it for personal gain, and you're not supposed to do those kind of things.
No, you're not. And she obviously signs them. Whether or not someone else actually prepared them, she signs on them. She, I assume, as an attorney general, as a lawyer of any type, she read the damn documents to see what she was signing, and she should have recognized, well, I can't make this claim. That's got to come out. Well, your rate's going to go up. Oh, okay, keep it in. I'm looking at a report that shows how Democrat leadership in Congress right now is sliding away. This is a survey, Gallup survey, and it finds that in the Democrat Party, congressional leadership is at an all-time low. The confidence rating for Democrat leadership in Congress stands at 25% in this latest Gallup poll, released last Thursday. That is 9 points below the previous low of 34%. And that was in 2023. I mean, the slide was already set in motion. And again, according to Gallup, confidence in Republican congressional leadership stands at 39%. It had a low of 24% in 2014. When you plot these out on a graph, you see that one is going up, one is going down, one is taking a nosedive, and one might be reaching nosebleed territory. But they think they can still pull the shell over your eyes and move things around. You won't really notice. But the American people are. And that's not just Republicans or Democrats. It's independents. It's Americans in general. They're seeing that this is not going well. And what you had planned for us is not going to go well. Now, of course, if you're watching the stock market on a day-to-day basis with what is happening with the tariffs, you have big questions. Is it going to hurt me? We're going to spend more time in the next hour on tariffs and somewhat contrarian views from Senator Rand Paul. That'll be coming up in our next hour. And also reference to Adam Smith, who's considered basically, although he lived in the 1700s in Scotland, basically considered the pioneer in understanding of political economies. We'll discuss Adam Smith coming up in the next hour. As I said, with Larry Connors USA, you not only get news, opinion, analysis, you get an education. And here's something you might need to be educated about. You got all your taxes done, right? You found a way to make it happen, or maybe you had to file an extension. And you were worried about that date. And you might still be worried about how you're going to pay out the rest of the taxes. It's always good to try to get ahead of the taxes for next year, but dealing with what's here now is your priority. Unless you're a member of the IRS.
When it comes to this kind of stuff, like, we already know now because of Doge that there was money that was going with no receipts, billions and billions of dollars that was just flying out with no receipts. They have no idea where it went. And Elon openly said, if this was a public company, it would be delisted, and the people who ran it would go to prison. But because it's the government, you're like, oh, I don't know what we did. We just they have no receipts.
Do you think
that could be going to it?
Do you think they'll bring charges against anyone for fraud?
That's the worry about disclosure.
Because
I think that's what's holding it back.
I think people need concrete stuff.
That is Joe Rogan talking about how many IRS employees are delinquent in their taxes continually. And what did they get? Well, the Democrats gave them a vast army of lawyers and tax agents to come after you. And Trump has obviously scaled that back considerably and ripping more out. And they also armed the IRS. They were out buying guns and weapons and ammunition, including machine guns, during the Biden administration. And all the way back into Obama years. I remember specifically trying to get certain shells for a pistol. Boy, you better buy them when you had a chance because they were not going to be there tomorrow. And gun dealers were basically taking orders for cases of certain ammo because the government was buying them up. And many of the rounds going to the IRS. I guess that's one way to force you to get your tax money in. In this nation, you cannot be sent to jail anymore for failure to pay tax. You can't be sent to jail. You can be punished. You can have civil fines and everything else levied on you, on your house and everything else, and wages garnished. But you cannot be put in stocks. And by stocks, I mean in chains and a yoke around your neck. We don't do that anymore. But if they can do anything else to bring you down to your knees, they will. And if we have the IRS currently continuing to allow many of their members simply either not file, not pay, not worry about it, we're going to get to the bottom of that. Senator Chuck Schumer is Jewish. But if you watch how he votes and what he says to appease progressives inside his party, you have to question his support for Israel and Jews, at the very least. That story when we continue.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
The Napoli heritage of fine dining continues with Napoli Kirkwood. Napoli Kirkwood, now open. So add that to Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. And don't forget about Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the district, Chesterfield Valley. All of those locations, plus now, open, Napoli Kirkwood.
This is Larry Connors, USA. Larry Connors, USA.
I want to begin with something in the Senate you would call a point of personal privilege, and it's something that the Republican Senator Bernie Moreno said about you. I'm going to read it to you. He said that Republicans are independently minded. This is a quote. Democrats are monolithic sheep that follow the Führer, Schumer's orders. What is your reaction to that, Senator?
It is despicable. It is outright anti-Semitism. I lost family in the Holocaust, relatives who were little babies and adults. And to use the word Führer in the same breath is just despicable, disgusting. He ought to apologize. It is outright anti-Semitism, no question about it.
Now, that's Chuck Schumer in an interview with Lawrence O'Donnell. First of all, my sympathies for the Schumer family and all the others who lost loved ones in the Holocaust. But how many times has Schumer and the left called out Trump, calling him Hitler? Now, Schumer just acknowledged how bad Hitler was in the Holocaust and the lives that were taken. Trump has done nothing like that, yet they have no problem, even though he calls, if you call me Hitler, that's despicable. but it's okay to call Trump Hitler when he's done nothing like Hitler did? I told you earlier about the surveys, the latest Gallup survey that got released last week showing Democrats are sliding down. Let me give you another example. Out of San Francisco, for years they have pushed their party to increasingly be more and more progressive. This is a piece from Politico. I always try to give you the source so you can check it as well. But they're talking about right now, leaders of the party are now arguing in San Francisco, beautiful city, was liberal, has gone so deep and so far to the left, Democrats are absolutely losing totally. Defunding the police symbol was part of the issue, obviously. And an astonishing plea and pivot for the party, some progressives and Democrats are realizing we need to move back to the center. Now they're recognizing that. Oh, they're still going to win San Francisco when it comes to Democrats and California for some time to come. But they're recognizing they no longer are leading unless it's to the dumpster fire. And in that case, let them run ahead of you. It will not be pretty, and you can smell it a long ways away. Coming up in our second hour, you don't want to miss it. We're going to talk more, of course, about replacing the pontiff after his death now. And we'll also talk more about tariffs. And Senator Rand Paul, kind of a contrarian, or is he? Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. Great patio season to enjoy any of the Cafe Napoli locations. How about the Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield? Enjoying coal-fired pizza, nothing else like it. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. A few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, where you can enjoy premium cigars and whiskeys. Check the Lit Cigar Lounge Facebook for details, plus gift cards for friends. I'll see you at Lit Cigar Lounge in Chesterfield. Ackerman Toyota is #1 in sales for 2024. That is 2 years in a row. It's really no surprise. Ackerman has the largest customer lounge where you can relax, take your time choosing new or premium pre-owned. Ackerman at Hampton and 44. AckermanToyota.com. Thank you for making Ackerman Toyota #1 2 years in a row. AckermanToyota.com. Ackerman Toyota for life. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as Support Dogs for Our Brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. I can tell you how to get a free quick quiz to see how artificial intelligence can boost your company's potential. You go to priglobal.ai, priglobal.ai. St. Louis Business Magazine listing PRI as one of the leading IT companies, and PRI has its own AI lab to develop what your business needs. priglobal.ai, priglobal.ai.
This is News Talk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Two Mexican citizens are facing federal charges after they were allegedly traveling in a car carrying 180,000 rounds of ammunition in southern Colorado. According to the criminal complaint, Martinez Solis and Ivan Amador Gaviria were arrested after a Fremont County deputy pulled them over in Canyon City for not dimming their headlights as they drove by. During that stop, officers found 180 boxes of ammunition, each of which contained 1,000 rounds. There were approximately 150 boxes of .308 ammunition, a common hunting round, and about 30 boxes of .762 ammo, which is commonly used in AK-47s. Both Solis and Gaviria are now being charged with unlawful possession of ammunition by an alien admitted under non-immigrant U.S. visa.
And that's the only thing we could get them on. I mean, because we do want to protect our First Amendment rights, but they're illegally here. And what was the purpose? Now, if you were an American citizen stopped with that kind of ammo, we'd have a different discussion. But we're talking about the illegals. And why would the illegals want that much? And they're in Colorado. And where's the left crying out that, oh, my God, we got gun control laws we need to follow. We cannot have people driving around with this kind of ammunition. And where were they headed? Who is it going to? Where did they get it? Are they arming more inside our country to be used against American citizens? There will be a lot more on that story still to come, but that story as it stands is frightening in many ways. It reinforces why we have the Second Amendment, so you can protect yourself. And I can't help but kind of smile about the idiocy of what got them caught. They're apparently approaching an officer, and they're driving with their high beams on, and they didn't flip them off, which you know is standard courtesy and proper way to drive anyway, regardless of who's coming at you at night. You turn a corner, and you've been driving with high beams because you need to see them, and then now there's a car, you flip them off, and they didn't. And I love it. That kind of little silly stuff that gets them caught. Boy, am I glad to hear that kind of story. Now we're going to have to figure out what is going to happen down the road with them. There's the key. Glad to have you on board hour number 2, Larry Connors USA, and reminding you we're here for you every Monday through Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. And when on the air, we're streaming video. You can watch the program. You go to NewsTalkSTL, Rumble, Facebook, Twitter. You go to Larry Connors USA, Rumble, or Facebook. And everything is posted later as a podcast at LarryConnorsUSA.com, NewsTalkSTL, or Larry Connors USA Facebook. So you won't miss anything. And reminding you, with Larry Connors USA, you do get news, analysis, opinion, and education. You will leave every program with more knowledge than you had when we began the program. That's not to say that you're not well educated. Some of you are probably much more educated than me. But the stuff I put in front of you, either you don't know or you overlooked it or you didn't understand the relevance of it with today's world. And there are cases, obviously, where you could educate me. That's why I always keep my email open for LarryConnorsUSA.com if you want to email LarryConnorsUSA@gmail.com. LarryConnorsUSA@gmail.com. And, of course, you can also comment on the postings of the Rumble video. Now, if you post there, your name will be seen by everyone. That's up to you. And if you post directly to me via email, I will not use your name unless you clear me on the copy. I will use your first name or give the general opinion. But if it comes to me, I consider it my private email, so I will not share it with anyone by name, but I will share your ideas you want to pass along. Oh, what? The one that those of you who are writing in, then do you want me off the air? Oh, I'm ignoring you. You forget that. Anyway, I do appreciate it. So we've got this illegal from Maryland, and we had the senator go down the other day and get to sit with him, and it looked like a nice, polite chat. I mean, the alien who is now in the worst prison in El Salvador, although I got an addition to that coming in a moment, was dressed nicely, and I guarantee you they showered him up before he sat down with the senator. They wanted him looking great. I don't know if he got a manicure. Maybe he got a pedi. I don't know. But they sat there and they talked and so forth. Because this senator is convinced this is a citizen of mine that the Trump administration tried to disappear, just grand him up and send him out of the country. The Trump White House has acknowledged he was put into a group going down to El Salvador because we're doing a sweep. And when you sweep, you grab up a lot of folks. And they do admit there was a piece of paperwork that might have kept him here, but he's gone now. Well, this senator says he should be back here. The El Salvadoran president said, we've got him, and we're not sending him back. So your argument should be with El Salvador, not President Trump. But more Democrats are lining up to go down and do this kind of trip for some of their, quote, illegals arrested out of their state. They think this is a great publicity stunt. This is a true three-ring circus. And every one of them are a blast if you love watching idiots. Dana Bash was interviewing the senator, and she asked him a question on a very specific point. Listen to how Senator Van Hollen sidesteps it while at the same time trying to blame Trump for detracting from you.
Now, President Trump says that some of Abrego Garcia's tattoos signify that he's a member of MS-13. In 2019, police alleged a confidential informant claimed that Abrego Garcia was an active MS-13 member. His wife and his attorney deny that, of course. Can you say with absolute certainty that he is not, nor has he ever been a member of the MS-13 gang? And did you ask him point blank?
Well, Dana, what Donald Trump is trying to do here is change the subject. The subject at hand is that he and his administration are defying a court order to give Abrego Garcia his due process rights.
But since you were the one person to have met with him, and since this is a thing, you say on social media, it's what we hear from Donald Trump and Republicans every day, all day long, you didn't ask him?
I didn't ask him that because I know what his answer is. What he told me was he was sad and traumatized that he was being in prison because he has committed no crimes. And that goes to the heart of this issue because he's being denied his due process rights. And Donald Trump is trying to change the subject.
As you just did. And this terrorist member is sad and disappointed that he's down there. Well, I understand that. And now there's apparently a report that they are going to move him to another prison, but he's still staying in El Salvador. I've seen conflicting information on this. But I do see that an MSNBC host is making a claim about who could be next in line for deportation with the way Trump is doing it. You probably know this lady. She's often been on MSNBC. Simone Sanders Townsend, I should say. She's now warning that all people of color will be next. I'm white. Is that a color? I think it is. I mean, that is stewing, again, hate and, again, race baiting. Do you remember how many times they said that Trump was anti-brown? And how many people in California and how many elsewhere around the nation voted for Trump who were, quote, brown? Then you get Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett saying this guy is worse than Donald Trump.
As far as I'm concerned, he's a lot less criminal than the person that's sitting in the White House. Because last time I checked, he doesn't have any criminal convictions. I don't even think he has any outstanding cases versus the guy that still had cases pending when he was sworn in on January 20th and also has 34 felony convictions. So listen, I don't want to hear anything from the Republican Party about how they're trying to keep us safe when their fearless leader is actually the biggest criminal thus far that we have seen, because I haven't seen anybody with a rap sheet that looks like the president's.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure of that. You just have not seen anything then, have you? Jasmine Crockett, as Louisiana Senator Kennedy says, just keep talking. We appreciate it. Just keep talking. And, of course, our border czar Holman says what the senator did by going down there and drawing all the attention to it was disgusting.
What bothers me more than that is a U.S. Senator traveled to El Salvador on taxpayer dime to meet with an MS-13 gang member, public safety threat terrorist. I mean, in the meantime, the day before he traveled, an illegal alien was arrested for murder, released to the streets rather than honoring an ICE detainer in his very own state. What concerns me is Van Halen never went to the border the last 4 years on Joe Biden when he had a 600% increase in sex trafficking in women and children. You have a record number of no-inspected terrorists crossing that border. You had 250,000 Americans die from fentanyl overdose because of the open border. You got over 4,000 illegal aliens died making that journey, which is a historic record. What shocks me is he's remained silent on the travesty that happened on our southern border. Many people died. Thousands of people died. I met with hundreds of angel moms and dads who buried their children that were murdered by an illegal alien. How many angel moms and dads has he met in the state of Maryland? That's what concerns me.
Yeah, and there's no way to get any true solace for them. They'd have lost their loved one because of gangs and illegals coming into our nation. Thank you, Joe Biden. And the left just continues to go berserk. They find a crumb of something. They think this will lead us back to the White House. Democrat Oregon Congresswoman Maxine Dexter, she's also now rushing to El Salvador.
Congresswoman Maxine Dexter here from Oregon's 3rd District. What Trump has done to Kilmar Abrego Garcia is inhumane, cruel, and it's creating a constitutional crisis. Full stop.
No, it's not.
It is a government-funded kidnapping. Plain and simple. Kilmar, a father of 3, lived in Maryland for over half his adult life. He had legal permission to stay in the United States.
No, he didn't.
Trump mistakenly deported him and is blatantly defying the Supreme Court's order to bring him back. And this isn't just about one man. Trump is targeting international students. He's talking about mass deportations. No one is safe in Trump's America. He is trying to incite fear and is directly assaulting the rule of law. This moment is about whether our government respects the Constitution or steamrolls it. We must speak out. We must stay loud. Our democracy and our humanity depends on it.
You know, you get the Democrats using the C word, Constitution, only when it benefits them. And then they misinterpret it. And they won't apply it equally. They just this one little case will stand up for the Constitution. Question for you. Don't mean to get personal, but did you file your taxes? It was last week, you know. Or did you at least file a notice that you want to extend? Maybe you're still trying to pull the money together, so you need some extension on time. Well, while you're trying to balance that part of your life, many IRS employees are not worried about their taxes.
While most Americans had to write a big fat check to the government today to pay their taxes, over 100,000 federal workers are not paying their taxes. In 2021, the IRS found that almost 150,000 federal workers owe about $1.5 billion in unpaid taxes. Over 5,000 of them work at the IRS and owe $50 million in overdue taxes. Even though the IRS can fire its workers that are not paying their taxes, only 20 people have been terminated. That double standard is something Senator Joni Ernst, Senate Doge Caucus Chair, wants to stop. She's introducing several bills aimed at cleaning up the IRS. One bill would require IRS employees to be audited every year and fired if they don't pay their taxes. But while the IRS is not catching the tax cheats on their own payroll, they are busy arming their workforce. Ernst is also calling out 10 million taxpayer dollars the IRS has spent on guns and ammo, stockpiling 4,500 guns, 5 million rounds of ammo, even 15 machine guns.
Yeah, all of that. We talked about that some in the previous hour. That's where they've been using some of your tax dollars to arm the IRS. We do not have a debtor's prison anymore. You cannot be sent to prison for failing. You can be sent to prison for falsifying, lying on your taxes. But IRS employees, I guess they just don't need to worry. And then you look at how some of these billions of dollars have been blown away. Joe Rogan.
When it comes to this kind of stuff, like we already know now because of Doge that there was money that was going with no receipts, billions and billions of dollars that was just flying out with no receipts. They have no idea where it went. And Elon openly said, if this was a public company, it would be delisted and the people who ran it would go to prison. But because it's the government, you're like, oh, I don't know what we did. We just, they have no receipts.
Do you think
that could be going to it?
You think they'll bring charges against anyone for fraud?
That's the worry about disclosure.
Because I
think that's what's holding it back.
I think people need concrete stuff.
Well, concrete stuff is you didn't pay the taxes. That's pretty easy to prove, isn't it? And you cheated, and you've taken money you shouldn't have. As Rogan was saying, Doge has receipts. They can show what was paid, what wasn't, and how the money was abused, wasted, stolen. Under a guise of this money is needed for this project. We didn't want the damn project. Coming up, dealing with China and tariffs worldwide. You don't want to miss that. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
I want to tell you more about Wellington Environmental's dustless blasting services. Wellington can blast paint, grease, graffiti, even stripes off parking lots. Truly amazing and powerful. But can Wellington blast something more sensitive? Yes, Wellington can use dry ice to blast soot and odors off smoke-damaged surfaces right after a fire. Currently, Wellington uses dry ice to clean mold off wood inside a home. Why? Well, dry ice immediately disappears, turns into a vapor. That means no mess to clean up, no damaged surfaces. You need to check with Wellington, always researching and practicing with new, better, faster, safer equipment and products for you. And it's very easy to schedule an estimator for your next project. Call Cindy, 314-644-4930, 644-4930. Be well with Wellington. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. There is a speakeasy in Cottleville, but you need a passcode. So go to the Oak Street Inn and Lounge Facebook, get your passcode to one of the hottest news spots in the area. Amazing food, 7 hotel rooms, 2-bedroom penthouse, and a speakeasy. I got my passcode. Get yours. Let's enjoy the speakeasy in Cottleville. You get your code by going to Oak Street Inn and Lounge Facebook. Oak Street Inn and Lounge Facebook.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I'm kind of old-fashioned, Larry. I don't like taxes, and I don't want more of them. I also think that if you tax something, you get less of it. And I don't want less trade. I want more trade. There's a fundamental argument we have to have in this country. Is trade good or bad? The president and his counselors seem to think that in trade, someone gets ripped off. The truth of the matter is this, that all trade is mutually beneficial, and really the U.S. doesn't trade with China. You trade with Walmart. So when I go to Walmart, if I pay $10 for a shirt, I want that shirt, and they want my $10, and we both go away from the deal having succeeded. We mutually benefited. That's the only reason trade happens. And then if you add it all up and say, oh, China's ripping us off, that makes no sense. Trade deficits are not real accounting. It's a fake accounting, and it doesn't mean anything.
I'm going to have to disagree with Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. First of all, he says we don't really trade with China. Well, we have a lot of goods coming in from China. I hear what he's saying. We're not dealing with the government directly. No, you're dealing with them with their permission. And they have had exorbitant tariffs on U.S. goods going into their country and basically not letting some of our goods be sold in their country. They don't want them. And other countries have been doing the same thing. We talked about this a lot previously, how Canada, our neighbor to the north, our good, friendly neighbor, was jacking dairy farmers and their products 250% if it went into Canada. You don't think that's being taken advantage of? How do you go around explaining that's not? Now, when the senator was saying, Larry, he was not talking to me. He was talking to Larry Kudlow, discussing tariffs. I also get some of the points that the senator is trying to make. So I'm not totally dismissing them. But, yeah, you want fair trade, not just free trade, but fair trade. And currently we have a $300 billion deficit in trade with China. That's why you have somebody on the other side of Senator Rand Paul, like Kevin O'Leary, who says we should be taxing them 400%. Tax all their goods coming into here 400%. We're currently at 150%, and they raised theirs to 150%. You might as well just say zero, because it's a wash, but maybe not total because of different goods. Louisiana Senator Kennedy coming to the floor and pointing out that trade can be good except
with respect to countries that are trying to hurt you. Except with respect to countries that are trying to hurt you. The only good tariff is a dead tariff. Tariffs are government intervention. With a tariff, a government puts its thumb on the scale. That interferes with people's freedom to freely exchange goods and services. Now, we all know that many countries throughout the world use tariffs and trade barriers to hurt the American economy and the American people. President Trump said he had enough. He said, if you raise your tariffs, I'm going to raise mine. And then an astounding thing happened. Instead of these countries bowing up and fighting us, they said, well, let's make a deal. Let's lower our tariffs. And that's what we're in the process of doing right now.
Senator John Kennedy, Louisiana. Trump stated, and I'm going to quote, he made this statement back on April 7th. This is after we had our Liberation Day declared on April 2nd and started increasing tariffs on everybody, every country. But then they got paused, except for China, for 90 days. And Trump said on April 7, I will say this, virtually every country wants to negotiate. If I didn't do what I did over the last couple of weeks, you probably wouldn't have anybody who wants to negotiate. Now they're offering things to us we would have never even thought of asking them for. You can mock him, you can dislike him, but he's a businessman at heart, and he knows how to make people come to the table. Senator Rand Paul says, though, that the way this is going down and all the tariffs and looking at the markets and everything else, Senator Rand Paul is just basically saying we're all running frightened at this point.
I think that tariffs are great as long as you don't enact them, as long as they're never law, and you only use them as a threat and you negotiate lower tariffs. They would be wonderful. They would be like manna. But what you're seeing right now is a world scared to death of a tariff war. You saw $6.4 trillion in wealth lost. I think it's up to $6.6 trillion, including today. A lot of wealth was lost, and this isn't me saying this. This isn't a Republican saying this. This is millions of investors out there. This is the marketplace. The marketplace has millions of people interacting every day, and they all said, holy crap, this is a terrible idea. I mean, look, a 50% tax on shoes in Vietnam, you think we're going to start making shoes in the U.S.? No, because it's more than, I mean, the savings and cost of labor in Vietnam pales in comparison to even that. What you're going to have is $100 shoes are going to cost $150, but shoes are not going to be made here. But it's also not a bad thing that shoes are not made here.
Well, the other part of that equation is if they're American companies and they're having those shoes made in Vietnam or Taiwan, yes, it will hurt, and they will either step up and bring the shoe manufacturing here. Offshoring jobs is not good for America. I understand what he's saying. It's great to have the tariffs as long as you don't make them law. Well, if you don't threaten them, they're never going to assume you're going to do anything. I obviously have a difference of a view than Senator Rand Paul. Here's Senator Kennedy.
And I think we ought to lower tariffs, except with respect to countries that hate us and are trying to hurt us. Mm-hmm. We ought to lower these tariffs as low as we can, and our goal ought to be zero. I've been preaching for 2 weeks on the Senate floor, saying I don't want to be at war with Canada. I love Canada. People in Canada are great. Let's both go to zero tariffs. And competition makes us all better, and let the best product at the best price win. Well, that's where I hope the president's headed.
In the meantime, China, which is not our friend, China, the Chinese Ministry of Commerce, warning countries around the world, appeasement cannot bring peace. Compromise cannot be respected. That was a message they sent out trying to have the European Union, Australia, or any other country thinking about bowing down to us on tariffs and accepting tariffs. And we're not doing tit for tat on their tariffs. But China is saying if you're doing that, you're appeasing, and that's not going to be good for you. Senator Rand Paul refers to a long-time recognized economics advisor going all the way back to the 1700s.
Adam Smith talked about the division of labor, and it was an integral part of the expansion of capitalism to wealth. As you specialize, first the individual quit making the shoes. Then there was one guy in the village making the shoes, and then he or she didn't make the shoes. There was one person in the county, and then the state. As the division of labor spreads throughout the world, that's where wealth comes from. That is capitalism. It's a fundamental aspect of capitalism is the division of labor and trade. And so something so fundamental, you shouldn't try to stop.
Suppose Mr. Trump comes away in the next month or two with 4 or 5 pretty good deals. Japan, India, South Korea, for example, allies of ours, Taiwan, and everyone's lowering their tariff rates. Would you change your mind?
I'll be the first to compliment him. I like Donald Trump. I support him. I'll be the first to compliment him if that happens.
Well, then I would think, Senator Rand Paul, it'd be good for you to talk about the beauty and the value that could come instead of constantly knocking this down in the dirt. That's my view. Reference Adam Smith, he did write and famous for his book, The Wealth of Nations, 1776. And it's still the foundations for modern economic thought. And yes, breaking up labor, sharing it, that is part of it, yes. But our problem has been we have U.S. companies that have been using the cheap markets to do their production and then bringing them back in. And we're not hitting them with tariffs. So why shouldn't they stay there? Trump lowered the corporate tax rate when he came in. Talking about lowering it again, not sure that's going to happen, but just the fact that he did the first time brought a lot of companies back to the U.S. There's a lot of things in this ball of wax and twine, if you want to call it that. You got your tariffs, you got your trade wars, you got your prices, you got your stock, you got your 401k. All of this is part of one big thing. They're not all going to be perfectly aligned at any time. Bottom line is, in my opinion, the U.S. must stay in the lead. We certainly do not want to be punished or suffering because of other countries like China saying, we will tell you what to do and you'll follow our lead. No, absolutely not. Who's following or leading the Democrats at this point? Good question, Larry. I'm glad you asked it. You have an answer? I do. I do have an answer. And it's coming up when we continue.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
Question: are you looking to unlock the full potential of artificial intelligence for your business? I want you to meet my friends at PRI Global, named by the St. Louis Business Journal as a leading IT consulting firm. 25 years helping local and worldwide companies. PRI Global has a free survey to determine where your company stands in your AI journey. You simply go to priglobal.ai. priglobal.ai. And I also have a phone number, so get ready to copy that number. And I'll remind you that PRI Global has its own AI lab, creating, adapting, developing, pushing the boundaries for what AI can do for you. Here's the number, 636-689-0545. 636-689-0545. Or visit priglobal.ai. priglobal.ai. Here's great news. Napoli Kirkwood is now open. So that means fine dining right in the heart of Kirkwood. So you have the original Cafe Napoli in downtown Clayton, Napoli 2, Town and Country, Napoli 3 on the streets of St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C, plus Napoli Brothers Pasta and Pizza in the Chesterfield Valley. All of those locations, and now adding Napoli Kirkwood. What a great place to dine. Napoli Kirkwood, now open. Renewal by Anderson is having a huge sale. Buy one, get one 50% off. Renewal has the most 5-star reviews in St. Louis, is the Post-Dispatch Window Retailer of the Year, winning the J.D. Power Award 5 years in a row, plus the nation's best warranty. For a limited time, buy one, get one 50% off. Details at rbastl.com. rbastl.com. Renewal by Anderson. You've worked hard for your money, so protect it. Meet my friend Bob Leslie and ask about the Gain and Retain Plan. Leslie Consulting, 40 years in the St. Louis area as a leader in brokerage and risk management. Call 314-721-0066, 721-0066. Oh, and ask Bob how he was the L.A. Dodger #1 pick. LeslieConsulting.com.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
We go out there as Democrats all the time and say democracy is the most important thing. We have to defend democracy. We fail to acknowledge that this generation, democracy is what put us through school shooter drills and school shootings. It's what's put us through the climate crisis and so much more. What we have to do is prove that democracy matters by standing up to the special interests that are killing the American dream and making our young people lose faith, not only in our party, but the future of this country. That is why we're doing.
I have to admit, I'm really not sure what the hell he was trying to say. I'll tell you who it was. David Hogg. He is one of 4 vice chairs for the Democrat National Committee. That's how cohesive they are. 4 vice chairs. And he's saying democracy is the reason we had COVID and what else was he throwing in there? My God, I'm looking. I'm going to go over my notes here again. I mean, he's just throwing stuff out there that I don't follow it. I guess I'm just not that smart. Could that be? Or is he just blowing air and smoke? Democracy is what put us through school shooter drills. What do you mean by that? Democracy put you through those? Are you suggesting because we have a Constitution and a Second Amendment right that's why you had to have shooter drills? And then he adds, and it put us through school shootings anyway. Democracy put us through that. Well, if you go to Korea, North Korea, or the Soviet Union, or the old Soviet Union, or current Russia, yeah, you were not going to see a lot of shootings, period, because people were not allowed to have the guns, only those in control. Well, you see how well that went for them. And he even threw in climate crisis. Democracy is creating our climate crisis. Let me take a sidestep here for a moment. There is a new movie out on Netflix, Sharks Below Paris, or something like that. And they bill it as one of the best shark movies ever. Well, I only know of one shark movie that was worth watching anyway, and I didn't like the sequels that much. But this is supposedly a mega shark, a mako shark, has gotten into the Seine River along Paris, and it's been breeding on its own, been able to multiply and have other sharks without a male around. And they're all in the catacombs under Paris, and they found their way into the Seine River. And so they're going down there to get them, and especially, here comes the conflict part. Not only have researchers been killed trying to get to it, but now they're going to have a triathlon, and part of the triathlon is a swim down the Seine River, which means the mayor of Paris wants that to be carried out. Just like the mayor wanted things to be continued in Jaws. That's the basis of it. Let me tell you, I was tired trying to go to sleep, and I'm watching it, hoping it will put me to sleep. It just perked my interest enough to pay more attention to it. But at the end, there went an hour 20 of my time that I'll never get back. So you decide if you want to watch it. But they also were bringing up environmental issues that forced the sharks to go into the Seine River. Maybe I teased it too much. Now you want to watch it? So be it. Back to David Hogg, trying to get us back on track here. If you remember, in 2018, he was a senior at Stoneman Douglas. And apparently, and there have been conflicting stories on this, if he was on campus or not, when a 19-year-old former student entered and started shooting. Hogg basically now has since become a gun safety advocate and against the Second Amendment, basically. So this is the kind of guy that's leading the Democrat Party right now. Well, earlier I shared a survey, a Gallup survey recently taken, showing that the Democrats are going the wrong way because of their views are not meeting with the general public. And I'm not talking about just the extremists, although they're part of it, and others are holding on to their coattails. Bad decision. Might as well spend your time watching the shark movie because you're not doing anything else with your life. At the same time, the Democrats are in descent. The Republican base has been ascending. It may not stay that way, but for right now it is. And why? It's because of people like David Hogg that want to tell you that everything wrong in America is starting with America. That's really what it comes down to. No, I do not buy that. Period. In our first hour today, we did devote time to the death of Pope Francis. And I do want to cover a few things for you in this second hour on him. The church is basically in 15 days of mourning at this point. Pope Francis passing away at the age of 88. There will be a papal conclave, and it will be taking place after the 15 days of mourning. And the cardinals who are under the age of 80 will be allowed to gather and cast a vote. And not all of them, I guess, will be included, even if they're under the age of 80. They have to be male baptized Catholics. I don't know how you can get to be a cardinal if you're not. So it looks like a determination, or rather I should say a limitation, a specification that all of them are going to meet anyway. But then it'll be nominated from around the world as to which ones will actually go. But they all must be under the age of 80. That's because from that group, they will select a new pope. Now, there is no age limit on who can become pope. Francis was 76 when he began. Benedict before him was 78. He was pope for only 8 years before he retired at age 85. So 120 cardinals of voting age will gather in the Sistine Chapel, and then they will have rounds of voting. Ahead of that would be prayers, speeches, reflection, maybe some political jostling to some extent. They will have no communication with the world outside as to what's going on. How will the world know? It's been this way since the origins. The conclave, after a 34th ballot, will then only vote between the two front runners who gained votes in the previous record. So there'll be no more than 34 ballots. But the way it was introduced, and has been since 1621, ballot papers will be burned in a small fire inside the Sistine Chapel as the field of contenders is whittled down, basically. If there's black smoke, from the smokestack, they're still deciding. Only when they have reached a consensus and a new pope is decided will there be the white smoke. Keep in mind, we're talking about the leader of 1.2 billion Catholics. You know, questioning someone's religion, I don't like doing that at any point. I mean, it's their religion and how they obey or don't obey. I know I'm a sinner in my religion. I try to make atones for it, but I'm still a sinner. I'm reminded of a verse in Jeremiah which said, I'm ashamed of my youthful indiscretions, and I've got a lot of youth things that I did wrong. I acknowledge that. But what I do have difficulty with are people who hold themselves up in proclaiming that they are above others because of where they stand, and yet they are just as deeply scarlet red as I would be. My point here would be even someone of another religion, and I have a lot of Jewish friends, but when I look at Chuck Schumer, and I've asked them, how can you support him as a Jew? Because he's often been at odds with the Jewish nation and the people. MSNBC Lawrence O'Donnell brought up that issue using a Republican senator's statement.
Now more than ever, we're short of workers. We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are here.
Now, that was Schumer talking about why we want more dreamers in place. But Lawrence O'Donnell did raise a question as to how you respond to a senator who says that you maybe are not so good at being a Jewish representative.
I want to begin with something in the Senate you would call a point of personal privilege, and it's something that the Republican Senator Bernie Moreno said about you. I'm going to read it to you. He said that Republicans are independently minded. This is a quote. Democrats are monolithic sheep that follow the Führer, Schumer's orders. What is your reaction to that, Senator?
It is despicable. It is outright anti-Semitism. I lost family in the Holocaust, relatives who were little babies and adults. And to use the word Führer in the same breath is just despicable, disgusting. He ought to apologize. It is outright anti-Semitism, no question about it.
But the problem I have, Senator Schumer, and again, I don't like questioning someone's religion. How can you be so anti-Israel as you have shown in your actions as a U.S. Senator and anti-Jewish at the same time and claim that you are Jewish? Now, I feel for his loss of family, relatives during Hitler. But he took absolute offense. That is so anti-Semitic to call me Hitler. But they don't seem to have any trouble with calling Trump Hitler, and yet Schumer knows Hitler has done nothing, or rather Trump has done nothing equivalent to what Hitler did. They will not call themselves into account when they're wrong. They will not correct things, but they will make fast and furious charges against you if they catch you wrong. The Hill has a publication. It is, as you well know, a Washington-based publication, leans to the left. As it began this article, a cardinal rule of American politics, it is never too early to start thinking about the next election. Granted. And they go on to say that some Democrats are already making moves that have stoked 2028 speculation. From California, Governor Newsom doing his podcast, trying to be a man of the people, talked to all kinds of people. AOC and her rallies lately with Senator Bernie Sanders. But still, they point out right now the field is wide open. Former Vice President Harris keeping a low profile. Been almost 3 years before the first primary is to be held, or it will be, but they are ranking AOC as the most exciting figure in Democrat politics. Deal suggesting that AOC might lead the party. That's a little far left for some people. She's got youth, she's got stamina. But right behind her, they list Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who could have been on the ticket with Kamala Harris. Josh Shapiro, Jewish. And for some reason, at the last minute, she held her announcement in the state of Pennsylvania to announce her VP pick. And it all looked like it was going to be Shapiro, but something behind the scenes, he got swapped out, and Minnesota Governor Walz was brought in. You know how well that turned out. In this Hill listing of possible candidates, right behind Shapiro is Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Certainly going to be a player. We mentioned California Governor Newsom. He's fourth on the list as far as the Hill's concerned. Then you got Maryland Governor Wes Moore. They consider him on the rise. 46 years old, Maryland's first black governor. And down in sixth position, former VP Harris. That's assuming, of course, if she doesn't run for governor of California and get it and say, no, I'll just stay here. Oh, and number seven, please don't let me forget this. Number 7 of interest, Illinois Governor Pritzker. Say it ain't so. It is, apparently, according to the Hill. As always, I thank you for listening. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can follow Larry on Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.